Hello and welcome to my weekly book review. And today I want to talk to you about Malorie, the sequel to Bird Box by Josh Malerman. And just like my review for Bird Box, I'm also going to be comparing some special editions, as well as the trade edition. We got the trade edition, we've got the SST special edition, we have the Dark Regions Press special edition. I have some thoughts and words to say about Malorie, and they're not necessarily positive. So I'm going to mostly focus on the book comparison first while talking generally about it. I will admit, I have a rant to do about this book. And I'm going to have to do some spoiler territory on that. So I'm going to save that for the end. So if you want to just stick around for the book comparison, that'd be awesome. I'm not going to get in any spoiler territory during the book comparison. It's going to be afterwards. I'll give you a warning. But if you want to stick around for a rant, then you're more than well encouraged to. It is going to involve some spoilers, though. Malorie, as I said, is the sequel to Bird Box by Josh Malerman. This was published in 2020, 6 years after the original story. I had ordered this nice signed trade edition, which, it's a trade edition. Nothing too fancy there. Nothing crazy. It does have Josh Malerman's signature in the front, but what you see is what you get from Del Rey. That's fine. We're going to put that on the side. This novel takes place 10 years after Bird Box. Brief recap of Bird Box. The world is now almost a post-apocalyptic world. Not that it's like a nuclear holocaust or anything. No, this is a holocaust of the problem. Some sort of beings are out there, and if you see the beings, you are driven to madness. You're driven to violence against those around you, and then ultimately violence against yourself. And it follows, in this case, the titular Malorie through Bird Box. There's two timelines, one being her being pregnant as the problem originates, and one with her and her two young children, boy and girl, as they journey down a river. Here in front of us, we have SST's gorgeous wraparound dust jacket featuring the art of Ben Baldwin. Ben Baldwin, who also did Bird Box, returns from Malorie. Just like with Bird Box, Malorie from SST has absolutely stunning boards. Just cloth-bound boards, a sewn binding. Production-wise, it is incredible. So Bird Box, which takes place 10 years after the fact, after they've made their journey to what ends up being a school for the blind, where they think they're going to be safe. I should say the intro in the school for the blind is not 10 years later. Here's the signature page featuring Josh Malerman and Ben Baldwin's signature. I got number 12. It starts off with the school for the blind, and let's just say the Jane Tucker School for the Blind. Things don't go incredibly well, and soon Malorie and her kids, who are now named Tom and Olympia, are having to find a new residence. And they do find a new residence in a camp, like an abandoned, it's like a Hebrew camp, if I recall correctly. I swear I'm not just throwing Hebrewism out there. I'm pretty sure it was a Hebrew camp. I'm trying to like block out the details of this novel. But more on that in the rant later. So this is the SST version. It does feature Ben Baldwin's artwork throughout. For Bird Box, I actually preferred Ben Baldwin's artwork for Bird Box. I think I might actually prefer Glenn Chadbourne's artwork for Malorie. My biggest complaint for Chadbourne's Bird Box artwork was that even though the problem had just begun, everything felt too just destroyed, too overgrown. But now this, being Malorie, is 10 years later, and things would be overgrown. So I think Chadbourne's artwork fits perfectly for it now. Anyways, I haven't even gotten to the plot itself yet. The plot of Malorie, after her, Tom, and Olympia have found their way to this camp, they are stunned with the news that Malorie's parents, who we haven't heard from since the beginning of Bird Box, may be alive. And so Malorie and company being her two kids, decide that they are going to go and try to find her parents. And that's going to take them on the blind train. That's not a spoiler. It's on the cover right there. It can't be a spoiler if it's on the cover. The blind train. So the SST version does feature acknowledgments, same acknowledgments and afterward from the trade edition, I believe. I should actually I can look it up right now. I'm pretty sure it's the same because I remember when I read the trade edition here. I remember reading the afterword and he mentions rough drafts. Yes, afterwards that I've got a thing for rough drafts. Some might call it a fetish. In a slightly different reality, I consider the rough draft / demo a finished thing. More on that later in the rant. Anyways, it's the same afterword here in the SST version, which is totally fine. But it does have a short story in it. I Can Taste the Blood, Vision 1. Unlike Bird Box, Bird Box had Bobby Knox, which is related to Bird Box. I Can Taste the Blood is not related to Bird Box. It's actually more of a biblical story. And while I have many thoughts on Malorie, which I'll get to in a minute, I actually enjoyed the short story that came with it. I Can Taste the Blood was actually a very solid short story. I don't want to really reveal too much about it. You should read it for yourself, which you could probably find it online. I didn't actually check. Or you can find it in SST's Malorie if you want to seek that out. Anyways, we also have Dark Regions Press version, which once again, just like Bird Box, features Vincent Chong's color dust jacket artwork. I think Vincent Chong's artwork is superior as far as the dust jacket goes. I mean, Ben Baldwin's is great, but Vincent Chong, I mean, that's just breathtaking. I mean, everything is red. I love the commitment to red. It's just really cool. Whereas Bird Box was commitment to blue. It's really a really nice touch. There is the blind train rolling down the tracks. Unlike Bird Box, the Dark Regions Press Edition, this one does not have the title on the front like Bird Box did. It does have it on the spine, but I mean it's larger trim size, but it doesn't have quite the same specs as Bird Box. It does have the signature page there. There is Glenn Chadbourne's depiction of the blind train. More on that in a minute. I think the layout, I don't know if the layout is exactly the same as Bird Box. I should have compared them. Bird Box had a lot of, these birds printed on it. And Malorie doesn't really deal with birds. So, the titular Bird Box from Bird Box does not come into play with Malorie. It also occurred to me that I did not mention the titular Bird Box in Bird Box. Essentially, they have a small little box of birds, and the idea is that while they're blindfolded and they can't see, the birds will notify them if things are near. And one of my criticisms of Bird Box is that the birds don't do a damn thing. It's like there is one. I guess the idea is, you hear the birds and you close your eyes harder. I guess I don't know. Anywho, the only person that the birds in the Bird Box alert them to is Gary, who is a survivor who joins about midway through Bird Box. And he asks, what's with the birds? And they say, oh, it's to warn us of people. And he goes, oh, that's a good idea. And I'm sitting here thinking, no, it's really not, because nobody heard you approach the house. So clearly the birds didn't work. Like, Malorie hears them at the door knocking. So I don't know why the birds are really in Malorie here for the design. I mean, you do get a bigger trim size, which is nice, but it almost feels like they just kind of took the idea, like the layout of Bird Box, and just kind of pasted the text for Malorie into it. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. I gotta start looking at these pictures because I don't want to show you any spoilers. But essentially, in Malorie, the son, Tom, is an inventor, much like his namesake, Tom the adult from... don't want to show you that one. Tom from Bird Box. And he's trying to find a way to see the creatures so people could survive. While they're adventuring, he gets word that there's a small town run by a lady named Athena, and it's a town dedicated to trying to find ways to solve the problem. So he's very intent on taking his inventions to that town. There's no short story in the Dark Regions Press edition, but there is an afterword, which is unique to this one. Pressure. I felt none. Some might say I should have. It deals with the idea behind Malorie. Him not feeling pressure. Something I'm going to talk about in a minute. So the short spoiler-free review is that I feel like Malorie is useless. This is going to sound really harsh, but Malorie is the type of sequel. It's a very unique type of sequel. It's not unique in that there are plenty of sequels out there that don't need to be made. It happens time and time again. Malorie is one of those sequels. It did not need to be made. But what's unique about Malorie is that it's the type of sequel that makes you dislike the original a little bit more because of it. Like, he has found a way to make me retroactively dislike Bird Box more after having read this novel. It infuriates me, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute once I get to spoiler territory, because I can't rant without spoiling stuff. So, I hate to say it, my short spoiler-free review is that if you are a fan of Bird Box, I highly recommend you don't read Malorie, because I don't like it. It's a novel that didn't need to be made. It's a novel that takes liberties with what made the first one great. Malorie, who, upon rereading Bird Box, I found to be a rather annoying protagonist, was actually even more annoying in Malorie, in this novel. Her kids were all right. There is something I have to say, but that's going to be in the rant section. One of my common criticisms of Josh Malerman is that he's bad at writing children or teenagers. They all sound like Josh Malerman, aka they all sound like a man in their 30s or 40s. And as weird as it is, the kids actually sounded like kids in Malorie, which I suppose could be a criticism, because if there's ever a novel where the kids shouldn't sound like kids, it's probably the one where their only source of communication is with their adult mother. But anyways, I'll let that one go. And let me just say, from a non-spoiler point of view, that this had one of the worst third acts I have ever read. The third act, the final act from Malorie, is so rushed that it makes the final season of Game of Thrones seem like a slow burn. He talks about how he didn't feel any pressure. He talks about how he considers rough drafts the final product. And those honestly speak true to this. It almost feels like he just kind of wanted to wrap it up. And so he did. And then that was his draft. And instead of going back and fleshing it out, he just said, I'm done. Like, it's insulting. And then reading the afterword where he almost says, first drafts are done novels. It's like he's spitting in your face. Like the afterword could have just been Josh Malerman going, nah, because he just ripped the rug out from under you, gave you this really rushed ending, and then just basically told you in the afterwards that he considers the rough draft a final product. So deal with it. So anyways, that's the spoiler-free review and book comparison. I have to get into spoiler territory now in a minute. But I think it might be a fun rant. I don't know. You might dislike it. So if you don't want to hear me rant, thank you very much for watching. Do consider liking and subscribing. I have plenty of unboxing videos, at least one book review a week. They're not all rants like this, so I apologize. So if the rant is going to scare you off, they're not all rants. This is a unique opportunity for ranting. But if you want to stick around for the rant, stick around. I'll give you guys 5 seconds, and then I'm going to go into spoiler territory. So we're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, and let's spoil shit. Okay. Malorie. Malorie starts off when they're in the school for the blind, and one of the blind women goes crazy from the creatures, which makes Malorie believe, holy shit, the creatures can make you go insane by touching you, which is a very interesting aspect. It's a way of upping the ante of the original. And basically, they walk around with these hoodies drawn over their faces, gloves on the rest of the novel. They basically spend the entire novel all 10 years in between walking around like Kenny from South Park, which is fine. It's an interesting concept, except we're going to get into a thing in a minute that completely undermines everything about it. First of all, one of my complaints about the novel is that it just jumps 10 years and they've been surviving just fine on this camp. Whatever. For a novel in a world where survival is the key, it just seems weird that surviving is so goddamn easy. But it is what it is. They find news that the mother's alive, and they go to the blind train. The blind train is one of my biggest complaints. So the idea was given to him from his girlfriend Allison, and it's a decent idea. The idea is that trains, because of their tracks, would probably be one of the safest forms of transportation within this world, because no navigation is needed. The navigation is set from the tracks. But you might be thinking, what if something gets on the tracks? Well, Josh addresses this in one of the laziest ways he can address it. Let me pull up the image of the dude on front of the train. His way of addressing it, he says, well, stuff might get in the way of the tracks, but we have a solution. And you might ask what the solution is. Malorie and the kids ask what the solution is. And he says, oh, the solution... Have you ever seen the film, the Buster Keaton film, The General? That's his explanation. Now, if you haven't seen the Buster Keaton film, The General, it involves Buster Keaton on the front of the train, the titular general, clearing the tracks as they go along. It's a very exciting silent film. It's crazy. However, there's one key difference between this guy and Buster Keaton. Buster Keaton was not blindfolded. So simply referencing that and putting a guy on the front to clear the tracks who is blindfolded does not answer how he can see what is on front of the tracks. I mean, the train is only going 5 miles an hour, so maybe the answer is that whatever's on the tracks stops the train. I feel like even going 5 miles an hour, the train is going to demolish whatever's on the tracks. So what purpose does this serve? Simply saying, well, have you seen the Buster Keaton film, The General? Does not answer the question. If Buster Keaton was blindfolded, he'd be fucking dead. If you decide to write a sequel and you throw in a scene where Malorie suddenly goes skydiving while blindfolded, and you ask yourself, well, how can Malorie skydive while blindfolded? How is she going to know when to pull the parachute? I feel like Josh Malerman's answer is going to be, well, you ever see Point Break? Like, that doesn't answer the question. Anyways, the train, metaphorically, is where this novel goes off the tracks. Because everything after that is pretty much the third act. And the third act is fucking terrible. On the train, they discover Gary, the bad guy, the crazy guy who, infiltrated the house in the first novel. Turns out he's kind of been watching them. He hasn't been watching them for all 10 years. Or I guess it would be 16 years, 17 years since Gary left their lives. But he's been checking up on them periodically, which is one small issue. He takes everybody off the train. Whatever. He throws Malorie in a hole. Malorie's afraid that she's going to see one of the creatures. And then the daughter, Olympia, I keep wanting to say Ophelia, says, "You're fine, Mom. There's no creatures there." And Malorie says, "How do you know?" And Olympia reveals that because she was born when her mother, who was also Olympia, was giving birth to her, Olympia went crazy. And because of that, Olympia is naturally immune to the creatures, which is fine. You know what? That actually kind of answers one of my other complaints of the novel. The first novel dealt with Tom, adult Tom, not kid Tom, taking over 24 hours to search 3 goddamn houses in the neighborhood because they can't see anything. They're walking around with brooms and they can't move. Meanwhile, within the span of 2 days, Malorie and her kids traverse an entire countryside, go 40 miles to get to this train. They're like goddamn superheroes. The road should be overgrown and destroyed. And they're getting around like it's no problem at all. And it's eventually revealed that Olympia can see the creatures. She's unaffected, which is fine. Okay, that explains, excuse me, why they can get around just fine. But you know what that doesn't explain? Why Olympia waited 10 fucking years to tell her. Like I said, Malorie has been going insane, thinking these creatures can touch them and like induce madness through touch. She's walking around like Kenny from South Park. Olympia is just playing into this madness by not revealing this for 10 goddamn years. Are you serious? Anyways, that's not even my biggest gripe with the final act. The kid, Tom, his invention are double-sided glasses. He thinks, now here, one of my biggest complaints about Josh Malerman is when he gets philosophical. He likes to get philosophical in his novels, and it honestly drags me out of it. It was my biggest complaint about Ghoul in the Cape. It was my biggest complaint about Daphne. You had a teenage girl getting philosophical in her diary entries. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't fit. And it doesn't fit here too. So Tom's rationale for getting double-sided, double mirrored, two-way mirror glasses is that when you're looking at the creature will be looking at himself through the glasses. And the creature is going to have a moment of like it's going to be looking at itself internally, in introspection. And through the introspection, the creature is going to stare at itself and realize what it looks like. And because of that, it's not going to drive you mad because you are going to have that same self-conscious feeling as the creature. And wouldn't you fucking know, it works. It works just fine. It's so stupid. That's such a dumb reason to say that, like, to save your sanity. Because first of all, what if the creature isn't looking directly at your glasses? What if you're seeing it from afar? What if the creature's turned around? One of the people in this town went crazy by trying to look at a creature underwater. What if the creature was looking at its reflection of the water? That person wouldn't have gone crazy. There's no logic to it. It's just so goddamn stupid. But anyways, this town that's tried everything, which, by the way, the leader of the town, Athena, talks about how, she doesn't need a blindfold to see the creatures, and this creature lives in her house because they've gotten used to it, which is a weird contradiction to the fact that her town is constantly trying to find ways to look at the creatures. Pick a lane. So anyways, Malorie gets kicked off the train by Gary. Malorie falls in a hole. Malorie gets rescued from the hole by her daughter, who can see the creatures and can see them her entire goddamn life. The whole touching people to go crazy, absolute bullshit. The lady in the beginning was just fake being blind. She wasn't actually blind. She was just faking it. Whatever. Completely wasted that entire... Oh. The kids' magical, double-sided, philosophical glasses does the trick. Malorie finds her way to that town, and wouldn't you know, her fucking dad just happens to be in that town. This is not where her parents are supposed to be. Her dad just happens to be in the town that she's looking for her kid in. And I'm like, what a major convenience that is. But then you're thinking, oh man, what are you going to do about Gary? Gary is clearly an antagonist. He's clearly trying to kill Malorie and her kids. He's following them for years. He just threw her in a hole. You know what? You know how they deal with Gary? She walks into the town center blindfolded, being aided by her kids, her daughter who can see everything, and her son who's got the double-sided glasses. They lead her to Gary, who is napping against a wall in the town. He doesn't have any lines after the train. He just shows up napping in the town against the wall, and she kills him with a fucking crossbow. And that's the end of Gary. That's it. It's all wrapped up. That's the end, folks. And then she sees the creature through the glasses, and that's it. First of all, if you're going to find a way to explain that you can see the creatures, you should explain what the creatures look like. It's a cop-out by not doing that, but whatever. But what a shitty fucking third act. You just wrapped everything up in once. It was like Josh Malerman started off on this tale, got bored, and just wanted to finish things up. And like I said, the afterword, he talks about how rough drafts, it feels like a rough draft because of that. Can you imagine how shitty the Lord of the Rings would be if once the Fellowship was disbanded, Frodo and Sam wandered to the nearest town, and the entire Fellowship was just there waiting for him? That would be stupid. You know what would be even more stupid? Is if Gimli speaks up and says, I have an idea about the ring. What if Sauron didn't create the one ring to rule them all? He just wanted wanted to be loved. And so they decide to love Sauron philosophically, and that suddenly works. Sauron is defeated. And then the Fellowship standing around in fucking Rivendell saying, what do we do about Saruman, the evil wizard? And then Legolas says, you know what? Saruman's sleeping over there in the town center. Let's just go fucking kill him. And that's it. Saruman's dead. The Lord of the Rings is over. That's what Malorie's ending is. It's so fucking bad. I'm sorry, I don't try to swear in these videos, but goddamn, it's just, this is like one of the worst sequels I have ever read. I'm trying to like you, Josh. I swear, man. But like, what the hell, man? Like I said, you have managed to make me dislike Bird Box more retroactively after having read Malorie. It's so bad. Oh, it's one of those novels. Like, what was the point of that? Like, if it was to find your parents, you just magically find them in the town. Sure, why not? Oh, that stupid double-sided mirror, two-way mirror thing is the dumbest cop-out, the dumbest answer to the problem. And then it just magically resolves itself. In this town, they magically find the solution to the problem. She finds her parents, and she finds the antagonist literally sleeping, and she just kills them without a word. So stupid. Anyways, like I said, my reviews typically don't go into rant material, but you gotta rant sometimes. Jeff Terry had a good rant about Mr. Purple. I gotta read that one still. This is my rant about Malorie, a Bird Box novel. Oh, I would not recommend reading it unless you want to